guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to review a figure that I pretty much had given up on this company because of the new line that they just recently put out. It is Terra Battat, and let's take a look at which one it is. It is the Carnotaurus. Terra Battat used to make these absolutely wonderful figures. They were from the Dan LaRusso collection. He was the sculptor behind these dinosaur figures, and I absolutely loved their older figures. And then all of a sudden they just stopped producing them. I know Dan LaRusso had passed away, and I don't know if that was the reason for them not producing the older figures any longer, or what exactly had happened, but they decided to go with this line, and this line is a much larger version than the older ones, but unfortunately it's not near as good. Now, I had reviewed the Utah Raptor that they released a couple months ago, and I was just thoroughly unimpressed. It was honestly one of the uglier dinosaur figures that I have seen, and I thought that this line was pretty much a goner. I have since seen their Acrocanthosaurus, their Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the Ceratosaurus, all of which were not quite as bad as the Utah Raptor, but I didn't really like them very much. And then I was on my way through Target the other day just to check and see what kind of Jurassic World toys they had out, and I spotted this. Now, me being a huge Carnotaurus guy, immediately I was drawn to it because I do love the original Terra Battat Carnotaurus, and this one honestly isn't near as bad as the other ones, or at least not as bad as the Utah Raptor. It definitely still suffers from some of the same issues that made me dislike the Utah Raptor, but it's not quite as bad. As I said, I'm definitely much more inclined to like this one than the Utah Raptor, so let's take a closer look and we'll see why. Now, as you can see, looking up here at the head, the detail isn't quite as significant as you would find on the older model. It's definitely not as significant as you would find on a lot of the newer models like the Jurassic World ones or anything like that, but it honestly doesn't look absolutely terrible. I mean, you can see that the horns up here on the head are really quite off-center. I don't know why that happened, where one is sticking out of the side of the head, and then the other one is kind of sticking straight up. Looks very strange to me the way they've done that, but that might have just been some sloppiness on their part with the mold for this figure. The overall head detail doesn't look that bad, in my opinion. I, again, might just be saying this stuff because I'm biased toward Carnotaurus, and I'm really drawn toward anything that is Carnotaurus related, but it doesn't look terrible to me. And you can see the teeth actually look alright. They're very small, but they're all individually painted. They don't look terrible in there. And you can see the tongue slightly, and the eyes are a reddish color because when you push down the hand, they light up, and I actually kind of like that noise. It's different, in my opinion, than what you would usually hear from a dinosaur toy like this. But these figures are nowhere near in the quality of the current Jurassic World line is as far as toys go, but this one's not that bad. As long as you're looking at it from this side, in my opinion, it's not that bad. But you can see coming down the neck, the detail again isn't really there, but you can see it. You can see lots of nice skin folds and stuff, but it's like the small details, like scales and things, are just non-existent on the figure, and you can see quite an ugly seam here as the neck connects to the head, which is a little obnoxious. But then you come down into the shoulders, and again you can really see a lot of smooth areas where they have just decided not to put any type of scale work or anything in. And then there's the arms. The arms have a terrible area around it where it's just a huge gap. But the claws are painted on the hands, which is a plus. It's something that the Jurassic World toys actually don't do. And then you can see some more nicely done detail here on the side. The side of the dinosaur actually looks half decent in my opinion. And then you come to the legs. And again, it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look bad. The feet actually look pretty good. The nails are painted very nicely. There's no real sloppiness or anything with them. So that doesn't look bad at all. For some reason the back nail here on both feet is not painted. I'm not sure why. But then you come back up here, and then you can go into the tail. Another annoying seam here where the tail connects. But the detail doesn't look too bad again. It looks okay. And then it goes out the whole length of the tail there. Now, we can't really fault too much as far as the sculpt. I can't give them too much credit because obviously this is a sculpt by Dan LaRusso, so it is a very good sculpt. I just feel like they lost some of the detail when they transferred it over into this plastic, larger toy. But honestly, this one doesn't look too bad, and I kind of like it. But when we go to the other side here, this is where the downfall comes into play. As you can see, there are screw holes everywhere. Just all over the place. And that is a huge downside to me. It really is upsetting because when I had originally seen it, obviously with its head turned this way, it was posed in the box facing this direction. So I thought, wow, that's actually pretty nice. It looks very similar to the original figure. Like the Utah Raptor just looked really ugly, had his fat legs and everything, but this one looks pretty good. The feet aren't oversized or anything like they were on the Utah Raptor, and overall it really resembled, in my opinion, from a step back, the original figure. And I did always like the paint job here on the repaint that they had released. It's got that beautiful red neck and the dark gray color. I really do like this. I love the way it looks. I also love the way the lighter underbelly just kind of meshes into the darker upper side of the tail. I always like the tail area of this dinosaur toy, but it is really, really hideous if you look at it from this side with all these screw holes and stuff. And then of course, instead of putting the area where you hear the sound on the underside like Jurassic World toys do, they put it over here just on the side of the dinosaur, which I think was another huge mistake on their part. I don't know why they did it that way. I don't know what they were thinking, but again, if you pose it from this side, it's really not that bad looking. So you got like a 50-50 as far as this toy goes. You got a pretty decent side, and then you got an ugly side. So overall, in my opinion, it's a step in the right direction for the new Terra Battat figures for the 2018 releases that they've had so far, but it's still nowhere near as good as the original figures. A lot of people probably won't even like this one in general just because the detail isn't quite as significant as you would see on some of the other figures out there, but it's still pretty nice to me. And again, I might just be biased based on the fact that I love Carnotaurus, but I kind of like this one. I definitely do. It's, again, no comparison to the older Terra Battat figures. I would much rather those, but if I can't get those, then I guess I can settle for this one. At least the Carnotaurus anyway. I don't know if I'll be buying the Ceratosaurus or anything like that. The Tyrannosaurus and the Acrocanthosaurus, although very huge, I think are severely overpriced. As these ones, the Carnotaurus, the Utah Raptor, and Ceratosaurus, they're about $10 at Target. But to get the T-Rex or the Acrocanthosaurus, they're in the range of about $35 to $40 depending on which week it's on sale. So that's pretty expensive to me. They also come with a whole bunch of other things that I have absolutely no interest in, like a cave and little dinosaurs and stuff. I don't know, it's weird. But honestly, I would just like to have the dinosaurs themselves, and I'm not going to pay that much just to get those dinosaurs. Unfortunately, they had to go that route. I don't know why. But either way, this one, like I said, isn't terrible. For a size, it's definitely a pretty decent sized Carnotaurus. So from head to tail, you're looking at about 11.5 inches long, and height-wise, about 7.5 inches, somewhere in that range. So it's a pretty good, like I said, a good-sized Carnotaurus. It's definitely a large figure, especially as far as Carnotaurus goes. It's not quite as large as the Jurassic World Carnotaurus that is out currently, but it's still pretty big. It's not too much smaller than the Jurassic World one, but again, not as big. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex. And you can see that the Carnotaurus is definitely larger than the Mr. Papo Rex there. So, like I said, pretty good size, definitely a larger toy. Now, as you can see, you may or may not be able to tell from this shot, I don't know if you can, he is actually leaning against the wall because the issue with the feet being smaller and more proportioned to the body has caused him to not balance very well. You can get him to stand, but I would imagine any type of a bump is going to knock him right over. So that is one downside to this figure, and a list of actual downsides. But at the same time, like I said, I'm a sucker for Carnotaurus, so I kind of just have to like him because he's a Carnotaurus. But it really doesn't look that bad. I want almost to hate the new Terra Battat line just because I feel betrayed with these newer toys that they've released over the older beautiful figures that they used to have. I really want to dislike them, but this Carnotaurus is pretty nice in my opinion. It's not beautiful by any means, but I'll give it a pretty nice. If I were to rate this guy on like a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give him like a 5 or a 6. Just because he's a Carnotaurus and because he looks better than the other ones did, in my opinion. I hate the fact that their eyes and mouth light up. That's kind of aggravating to me. I'd much rather have just a regular eye with a pupil and all that kind of fun stuff, but unfortunately that is the route that they chose not to go with. They chose to make these things appeal a little more to children, and I can understand that, as that's obviously what these toys are aimed at. But me being a dinosaur collector would much rather a more realistic look to it. But again, not a terrible Carnotaurus. I definitely like him way more than the Utah Raptor, but still not near as good as the older Terra Battat figures. If you do want to pick this guy up, he is at Target right now for $9.99. I don't know if he's on the website quite yet, but I will check for you guys and see. And if he is, I'll throw a link in the description so you can buy one for yourself if you'd like. And please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.